I know that most of you are here because this is a special morning, but I also just want to take a moment and welcome those of you among us who might have just wandered in today and don't know that this is a very special day. Shelley's completing her ministry with us after 8 years of formal ministry, but 15 years of just being here in our congregation, being nurtured and moved along by our congregation. And so just before we go into a kind of an interview, I want to say a special welcome to Marie and Beth, who are really good friends of Shelley, and I want to say a real special welcome to your family, Shell, to Steve and Karen, your parents, and to Sebastian, and to the twins, Ethan and Maribel. And there they are. So Shelley, about 12 years ago, it's a while, I was sitting at my desk one morning and a phone call came in and I picked it up and it was John Norgard. And for those of you who remember John Norgard, you will remember he is this incredibly faithful guy to FCCB, was our treasurer and was very, very involved and really invested in our building. He called me and he said, well, Pat, you know, I'm getting along in years and frankly, you know, I want to have everything in order before I die. And he said, so I've been thinking that I would like to give 40% of my inheritance, or 40% of whatever I have left at the end of my life, to the church. Ooh, I was stunned. That's amazing. And then he said, but I want to give it for something particular and for something very special. I have been on campus and I have seen kind of the craziness over there in campus and how Jesus and Christianity is abused on campus by people who are more fundamentalist than we. What I would love to do is be able, oh, here's the family. What I would love to do is, Jeff, you want to come and have a seat? What I would love to do is to be able to give some money so that we might have a campus ministry at FCCB, at First Church. I really believe that we might be able to open up and unlock this amazing gift that we might be able to give to our community. So, of course, I said, great. And then as time went by, both John and Marva Dawn died. And sure enough, this amazing gift came to us from their estate. It was quite amazing. And we immediately went to the long-range planning, and long-range planning took a look. And thanks to Becky Smith, who said, we can do this. We can have a campus ministry. And so we did a pilot project and asked Shelley to do that pilot project, and then we decided, yep, we're going to go ahead and do it, and we did a national search for the best person for the job, and lo and behold, Shelley was the best person for the job. She knew everything. She knew the community. She knew how we were trying to bring the university and the church together, and she has done that job, I think, brilliantly, faithfully, and with so much love. So this morning, Shell, I'm going to ask you if we can break you away from your children for a small moment, or the kids can come out. I have some questions I'd like to ask you about your ministry. So the first question is a really easy question. How did the program develop?
Oh, easy? I don't know about that. You know, one of the things I love to remember, what has been a blessing in this time, is going back and really remembering what has happened on this sort of long and really full journey in this community. And it made me go back to this Thomas passage. I feel like this church breathed life into what I love to do, which is to go out and meet people where they are and really hear what's going on and figure out a way that the story of faith and life can nurture them. Because there's such a hunger in people, whether of all ages, but as I focused on young people, there's such a hunger for community, for connection, for affirmation, and for celebration of the gifts that they have, that reminder, like, you know what, you have something really special in you. And I feel like when you're 20, you know, the last thing you're thinking about is like, oh, something's really special about me. I have something to contribute to the world. Like, I'm worthy. And you're kind of in this constant angst of like, you know, I gotta do something better than what I already am in this moment. I need to prove myself. I need to get that first great job. I have to get this award or this degree. And, you know, I feel like those kind of things probably never leave us throughout our life, but it's something that's at the core of someone who's in their early 20s. And I just had, you know, I'm trained actually as a sociology researcher and then as a market researcher. Those were my sort of
Did you get those
field,
at PSR?
Those are my studies of field in my undergrad. And also in my work before I moved out to the West Coast. And I love going out and finding out what it is that people are hungering for. And I have such deep faith that our Christianity, our Christian values, and that a congregation and a community, particularly one like this, is able to welcome and hold and nurture people. If they only knew what was available to them. And I think I had so much trust. This was such a beautiful gift that came from the Norgards. And I felt that I could trust that this was a community that could really give life to the vision and the passion that I felt the Norgards wanted to have happen with the gift that they gave. And that this was a place to really experiment and do something new. And that was what was really being asked of me. And I couldn't have asked for a better first call to ministry of really trying to make that happen. And I'll say, you know, it's funny, I had come here after being in the Jesuit Volunteer Corps. A couple of my girlfriends are here from that experience. And also all of these other young adult friends of mine who were not part of faith communities. And I'm just like, what is going on with people this age? And what we want to. And, you know, I was just coming back to the church myself. When I came to this church in 1999, I had not really been involved in a UCC church since I had left my hometown church before heading off to college. And so I, too, had gone through that same journey of, you know, why go to church? Why be part of a faith community? And so the question felt very tangible and present for me as well. And so it was really wonderful to be kind of commissioned to go out and explore what was needed on the Cal campus and to explore what was needed in the wider community here. And it was such a gift to have this community invested in that and sort of giving life to something new and wonderful. That just seemed, you know, so essential.
I feel like when you started your ministry, you were kind of a young adult yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And so you had some of those same experiences and some of those same values as you went in. And so the second question comes in just a little bit of a different way. So what worked? I remember in those early years you were doing all kinds of things, all kinds of really unusual, almost experiments in the community. I remember a cooking class that you taught over here. That was a Cal campus class. What worked? And by virtue of what worked, maybe were there a couple of things that you tried that didn't work? Mm-hmm. So what worked and what wasn't so successful?
Well, I think, one of my main missions and what I felt anytime we created a program or a space for this to happen was intergenerational relationships and connection. For the most part, I felt always worked. I felt like sometimes people feel a little awkward as I go to like try to meet someone they don't know and think like, oh, I have something to share, which is what I asked of people in a mentorship program I created. And so many people in this church were like, what do I have to give to a Cal undergrad? And as soon as you saw the light on how valuable you could be in a person's life, you are amazing. I mean, we look around this room, each and every one of you could be a very powerful mentor for a young person, for someone that's in their 20s that has all kinds of questions. That, you know, sure, they have wonderful and supportive parents and they're asking, but there's something that completely different that comes from a very loving, caring adult who's not their parent, you know, particularly when you're 20 years old. And I just feel like any time that we created space for a community to happen where young people and older people were together and sharing stories of their life, it was really powerful. And so we had a vocation mentorship program that was one of them. One of the other really great programs we've done are service immersion trips that are intergenerational. You know, young people go on all kinds of trips, particularly with their peers, but it's something really different to go on an intergenerational service trip. And I will never forget being down doing relief work in New Orleans for Katrina, and I think it was Mitzi McKenna talking about the Japanese internment with a young person who was so curious about what that experience was like and what somebody must have gone through and what life meant for that person and how enriched they were. And yet, at the same time, I heard from the older people on the trip, like how significant it was to know about the journey that these young people had already been on in their life and what they were passionate about and what they wanted to be supported and pursuing in the world. And
I was able to
so
join you
powerful.
for about 3 days of that, and my favorite memory was how the young people looked at the older generation and went, "They're so strong, and they don't give up," which was really great.
I think there was like this mutual surprise about who the other was, and it was like, just this realization, like, oh, if you don't have a young person like in your immediate family or in your everyday life, you have no idea what's going on with someone in their 20s. And what a gift to learn that, and vice versa.
And what was frustrating for you?
Well, I feel, you know, as we've made some shifts in our ministry here, you know, working on the Cal campus is really challenging to do. I loved it, and it's really challenging. I mean, you know, it's this huge institution. It influences all of Berkeley. And the students at Cal are just gifted. And so everybody wants them to be part of something they're doing. And, you know, in some ways I almost felt like I'm doing a disservice asking them to like be a leader in our community because, you know, it's like adding, you know, it's like the 100th thing on their list to do, and the last thing I want to do is like create more stress in their life. And so it was just trying to find the right balance around what spiritual life means and is meant to be nurtured for somebody who's got a lot of opportunities and a lot of questions to be asked. And so, you know, just there was a lot of wonderful things that came out of that, a lot of just challenges and frustration as well. And so I'm really thrilled that we've made the shift in our program here to broaden it to the community of young adults, because it allows us to also meet the needs of undergrad students, which are certainly there, but also lets us look at folks that are maybe just beyond the undergraduate years and really who might have a little bit more space and desire to really tend to their spiritual journey and to be full in community life. And so I think we've made a really nice shift into kind of a whole ministry for a community of people rather than a kind of particular population.
Lastly, I know that personnel and long-range planning and probably the council is listening, but also all of us. What would you recommend to us as we move into the future? What would you say to us? What are the last words that you will say?
My final words.
The last bit of advice that you would give to us about what we need to do to pay attention to this program, to keep the program strong, and also to pay attention to the young adults in our community.
Well, I think it's so important to be on the move into the community. There are many folks who come to this place and find such meaning here, but they may only make it here once a month, and we may not then remember them or recognize them or remember their story. And I think it's so important to know that they see this as their community and their home, and to remember them. So if you see a young adult, pay attention to what their story is and who they are, and welcome them the next time you see them here. But I think more importantly, it's going out and meeting them in the places where they are and creating sacred spaces in those places. And some of that might be actual physical connection and relationship and presence, and some of it might be what can happen on the internet or in other sort of new technology ways. And that's something I think would be great to explore more and find where there's some vitality in that kind of ministry as well. Because there are folks that come here from like Oakland, but you know, it'd be great. What could happen if they gathered together in Oakland and really saw themselves as like a community of FCCB, young folks that's there, and nurtured each other that way. So sort of those, you know, groups in the community and kind of really supporting that. And just to continue, I think it's so important to continue both an opportunity for young people to be with each other, because there's so much value of like feeling like, oh, we're in this place and this journey together, but then they also want this, the intergenerational relationship. And so that requires, some facilitation and creating it to happen. But if you've been invited to come to something that's going to be with young people, I really hope you go. Because the intergenerational community element is just really critical to, I feel, like what we're called to be and do.
I only have one tiny regret, and that's that John and Marva Dawn Norgard can't be here today to see what has happened and to see what an amazing gift they gave not only this community, but I think all the new people that have come since the gift came. And so I think they would be able to say that we did give rise to something that was in us. They helped to enable. And Shelley, you were the one, and we're so grateful to you for all the gifts that have been given. Thank you. And we'll talk more about that as the day goes on. Shelley Dieterle Day at FCCB. Thank you.